Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
She and her staff help many people dealing with lots of different challenges. One of them is bipolar. I just lost my train of thought here. Borderline personality disorder. There we go. Sometimes people get it confused with bipolar, and I think I just did. BPD. And that's what we've been talking about in this podcast series over the last number of weeks, some of the therapy involved in that. Today, we're going to center on the communication involved in the therapy to help those with BPD. She is Marinela Trickett from Trickett Counseling Center, and she's back with us. How are you doing?
Well, hello, Steve, to you and all of the listeners out there. Doing very well. The sunshine finally came here in Canada.
Finally feels like spring, at least here in the New York area. We spent quite a few weeks on BPD. A lot of information given out there. And the therapy we skimmed on was DPT, correct?
Yes, borderline personality disorder is such a stigmatized suffering. And here we were attempting to just give a general overview for those people who are struggling with, for those people who have family members. And we kind of started the conversation about the gold standard in a treatment, which is dialectical behavior therapy. And these are a set of very practical, very practical skills that we get into. With that little or big asterisk there, dialectical behavior therapy we use not only in the treatment of borderline personality disorder, although that's how it started, because these skills and tools are so practical. We can use them in our daily life. You can use them to improve really the quality of our life, the quality of our communication. So anyone and everyone out there who listens, it really doesn't matter if they're having kind of encounters with BPD, formal, informal, diagnosed, non-diagnosed. Those are very helpful skills.
Well, let's talk about those impactful communication skills. What are we centering on here?
Ah, um, uh, just very briefly, we spoke about dialectical behavior therapy, having 4 modules, and last time we spoke about um, distress tolerance skills. These are skills that help our body, to help soothe, to help ourselves tolerate the distress that arises. Distress tolerance, mindfulness, there are a set of the 2 modules of dialectical behavior therapy. The other 2 being communication and emotion regulation skills. So today, I thought we can get a little bit into the communication skills because, hey, again, let's face it, which one of us sometimes, I wish I said this in that way. I know I've had those moments sometimes. And I have found those interpersonal relationship or just simply communication skills very helpful. So the basic premise of, pardon.
Can we look at those communication skills? Can you give some examples of those?
Absolutely, Steve. That's where I was just about to get into.
Wonderful.
The basic premise of communication is some kind of exchange with between 2 or more individuals. Exchange. When we communicate, we ask for something. Generally, hey, I ask for your attention. Or hey, I have a very specific ask. Where I set boundaries to. You know what? You asked me to go out for lunch tomorrow, but tomorrow I have this thing going. How about this other day? So, say setting boundaries or replying to a request or saying no to, these are all different ways of saying that. So very important things to consider if we have that luxury. prior to our communicating with someone is, what is our ask here? Their time, something very specific, hearing us by setting boundaries. Clarifying with ourselves what is our ask here in that communication is very important, so we were able to convey that in term to the other person. Sometimes that is where the difficult part is. What do I want here? What do I want to convey? Do I ask them for their time? Another very important consideration is the set of what we say and how we say that what.
Mm-hmm.
The words that, let's say, come out of us towards the other person, and the mode. Are we more animated? Are we less animated? The tone of the voice, our presentation, facing the person, eye contact, no eye contact. These are, again, our very important considerations in communication with another human. Both kind of equally. We use also content process. Content is what we say. Process is how we go about and saying that, because sometimes, however valid our message is, when it's said, when it's delivered, if you will, in a way with non-verbals that do not match, that are not attuned to the other person, that validity of the message is being lost. And the other person is left with, hey, if I perceived your ask very strong, if I perceive this ask as an attack, my first priority is to protect. And I lose that validity, is being lost in translation.
What's more important, the thing we say or the way we say it?
Both have different and equal importance.
Okay.
Different and equal importance. Because having clarity in the thing we say, it's, again, just as equally as important of how we delivered that message. And I'll give an example here. Okay, imagine I'm an employee of a company and you're my boss, and I sit there in front of you, and I was like, okay, you know what? I've been here in this company for five years, and I never had a raise. I was just kind of wondering, you know, if you were the boss, what would be your response to this presentation? I don't even know if you were able to hear what I was mumbling.
I would think that you're unsure of yourself. You're uncomfortable. You're not very prepared. That's what I would be gathering.
And in a very indirect way, I was trying to ask for a raise, that I have been in this company for 5 years and I haven't had a raise.
Ah, okay.
So my thoughts, my ideas were to sit here in front of you as my boss and say, hey, you know what? I have been working here for 5 years. During those 5 years, I have not had a raise. This is my value to the company. This is what I'm contributing. What is my ask? I sit here. And to inquire about a raise. This is how I see my value. And I really appreciate you hearing me, and I really appreciate you taking the time hearing me and considering that. So
I didn't get that from you.
yes, again, it is so important what and how we deliver that what. That employee, that was the modeling of employee who carry the view of self as very, very small, very, very little, even if they contribute highly in the company. If they see themselves like that, that's how they carry themselves in the world. The other way, the opposite pole of seeing ourselves is also not helpful. But this, seeing myself, evaluating myself as less than, and making myself smaller, I do not meet myself, my own needs in that way. As a result, my communication is very, very vague. The activation, my anxiety in my body is very high. As you pointed out, Steve, I came there, I have appear not prepared. I appear that I'm mumbling, and I really didn't get to the point of,
Right.
yes. So this is how and why communication skills are very important. So what and how we use in DBT, we use a set of acronyms that are helpful in remembering mnemonics. What we use the formula DEAR, DEAR, describe, express, assert, and reinforce. Uh-huh.
That's interesting because it's often been said if you're going to address somebody or give a presentation, you should tell them what you're going to tell them and then tell them what you told them. And that's what I'm kind of hearing from there, with the D that was described.
Yes.
Okay.
Tell them what you're going to tell them is kind of setting up the stage, so to speak.
Right.
The relation effect or impact.
Sure.
Yes. And D is describe. When we think about description of the situation, very helpful is think about reading a newspaper, third person singular. Hey, this is the situation that happened. Think about passive voice as much as possible, of course. Think about as much as possible taking the word you out of there, because when we hear, hey, you this, you that, it is very common for us humans to experience that as an attack. However, I heard this. Now I am talking about the experience. So this is what happened. Passive voice. So there is no agent. Taking the agent out of the ask. Describe. Also think about facts, 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 facts only. If I read a newspaper, things are described more or less in third person singular. And try to, again, if you have a luxury to ponder on it, try to take away interpretations as much as possible. They're very valid. We're not saying they're not valid. However, we are describing the situation, factual situation. So if we're a fly on the wall, if we have 10 of those over there, all 10 of them will describe that. Hey, Sally said this quote to Johnny. If 10 people describe that in a factual manner, that is what we are going to report. Sally said this to Johnny. Well, how we feel about it, it's a separate story. So we make distance. Facts to the second step. Express. There, we express how we feel about those facts. Express of our emotions, because who can argue with us what we experience, what our emotions are. Another very common example is, imagine, hey, I'm a university student, and maybe that's a thing from the past, but I am in a handwritten exam with pen and paper. I have my pen and my pen stops, something happens, breaks down, and I do not have a pen. I have very limited time to finish this exam. And however, I see my buddy next door here writing, have 5 beautiful pens. At that moment, describe, hey, my pen, it doesn't want to write anymore. Express, That makes me feel now worried and anxious that I cannot complete my exam. Assert, ask in a very clear, direct manner. Can I please borrow a pen from you? Very clear, very direct, very short, sweet, to the point. If you can take all adjectives and adverbs from the assert, that's the third step. These are kind of the business of poetry, adjectives and adverbs and all of that. One verb sentence when we ask for things. As much as possible, of course, not every time is possible. If we keep those in mind, as much as possible. One verb sentence, very short, very sweet, very to the point. Can I borrow one of your pen, please? And R for reinforce. Thank you. How many times we ask and we forget, hey, thank you. This means a lot to me. I really appreciate that. My gratitude. What's in it for them? Other way of thinking about reinforcer is, why would they grant me my ask? What's in it for them? My gratitude.
I love that. You know, have you ever heard this? That many times people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely, Steve. Earlier in our conversations, when we spoke about trauma and our body remembers. So this is where now we are bringing the how of what. How we say the what, how we say the dear, how we describe, how we express, how we feel, how we ask, and how we reinforce. And based on that, again, for the ease of the presentation, we divide the how in 3 modes, if you will. When the objective or the goal is more important, when the relationship is more important, and when the self-respect is more important. Rarely there are clear-cut situations like that in life. Again, just for the presentation, for the ease of kind of first exposure to those skills, we use that. But again, we can mix and match. So when objectives is more important, in this situation that I just provided, university student, the relationship is non-existent. Therefore, we imagine for that student, asking student, it's lower on their ask. The objective, it's most important. Hey, I need to obtain a pen here to finish my exam. I have 1 more hour left to go, so that is priority. Self-respect, I mean, in that situation, again, in every situation we carry an element of self-respect. It's just a matter of balancing. So when objective is more important, we use the acronym MAN. Be mindful, appear confident, negotiate. Especially in relationship, pre-existent relationships. Sometimes people we use colloquialism here, push our buttons. Oh, but you asked me for this, but you always do that to me, but 5 years ago you did that, but often these kind of responses enter into our conversations. So what do we respond there? Be mindful of our ask. Be mindful of our ask. Be mindful of our ask.
Is a lot of what we're talking about here in terms of the communication, is that what's taught with DBT?
Yes, absolutely. This is from interpersonal effectiveness module, and DBT has been adapted for very many different type of struggles now, and really, really, we encourage everyone to teach your loved ones. These are very helpful skills. Also, I have found, Steve, as in our first conversation I shared, I was born and raised in a different country, different culture. Norms of communications differ between cultures. And when I decided to make Canada home, for example, I went to this when I was doing my psychology undergrad, and I went to exams, and I was writing these papers, and everything in this was in the paper. However, I was not getting the marks I imagined because I put everything there. And I was wondering for a few times what's going on here. Until, Steve, I discovered those skills. And I know I'm speaking about written expression here, just as equally helpful. The way different culture express themselves differ in the way that is valued. Yes. So for me, those skills were incredibly helpful in terms of when we assimilate acculturation and assimilation, a big process when people move around the world, and really, really clear communication.
Can you give us those again, dear?
Dear, describe, express, assert, and reinforce. This is the what we say. And then we have, dear man, when you describe that, be mindful, appear confident, and negotiate. If you can think ahead of time what you are willing to give in order to get, that is a great luxury. Is 70% of your ask better than zero? Most definitely 70% better. Yes, maybe it's not 100% of your ask. Okay. How much of that ask you're willing to negotiate and trade? And when, at the end of the day, because we can put our best foot forward. And yet there is another side that we don't have influence over how they communicate. We turn the tables. Hey, I've suggested this, that, third, and a fifth. What would you do? And this is when objective is very important. And Steve, you very astutely say people remember how they felt in our communication. The second part is when I mentioned the relationship is more important. We use the acronym GIVE.
What's that stand for?
Be gentle. Be gentle. Act interested. Validate an easy manner. Being gentle in our communication open doors. No remarks, no smearing, no smirking, no threats. Act interested. I mean, if I pull up my phone now, hey Steve, you're here, I'm just going to text my friends. That is rather invalidating. You wouldn't get the impression I'm here to talk to you. And validation. There's so much research about the power of validation in our communication.
Absolutely, because people want to know that they're being heard.
Yes.
And making a connection.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So important in our communication.
We're out of time in our communication today. Just about, yeah.
That.
And I've heard about DBT, had no idea that the communication component was so strong within it. If somebody is looking for that and more, you offer a lot at your counseling center. Share the website with everybody, please.
Yes, most definitely, Steve. And again, 30 minutes is a very short period of time. We were not able to go over all of the communication tools today. Perhaps next week we're going to continue from where we are stopping today, because we are yet to speak about the third mode. And back to sharing. TrickettCounselling.com and TrickettPsychotherapy.com. We are here to help, support, coach, hold space, listen, all of the above.
And you can do this virtually. DBT can be done anywhere on the planet, electronically, like we're talking now.
Like we're talking now. These are incredibly helpful set of skills, DBT informed, because for the full program, DBT we need to have a team and other requirements. Using the skills, we speak the language DBT-informed, although that may seem as a technicality. Those skills and many others. This is just a very small part of tools that we use to help and support people out there.
More and more I hear about DBT, more and more I see the importance of it. And you, of course. Trickett Counselling is Trickett. Marinela, thanks for being with us today. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch up again next week.
Steve, I really appreciate the platform to speak about skills, suffering, and healing. All of that. I'm looking forward to speak again and continue our communication conversation with you and all of the listeners out there.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.